We're going to be going over. Oh, are we recording this? Okay. All right. So anyway, thank you for coming. We're going to be going over a lot of the predictions for 2022, and I am going to hopefully get you guys in and out of here in about 45 minutes. But before I begin, a few little things to discuss. A lot of the predictions are going to be addressing things like population and immigration and things like that that can be really hot buttons for people. I'm more than happy to talk politics to you one-on-one, but I do not want to go down a political rabbit hole and drag the entire audience with me, if you don't mind. So, but we are going to be discussing it because it's out there. And also the Cromford Report, for those of you who may or may not be aware, Michael Orr, who founded the Cromford Report, actually lives in England. And England has been hit with Storm Arwen. I know a lot of us are like, what? There's storms, there's snow. It's beautiful here. Think about a hurricane, but with snow. So our servers have been without electricity for about 7 days, as has Mike, and no internet. So I'm like, no internet? Oh my God. Anyhow, so some of my charts are updated. Some of them aren't. Mike Orr is currently in a hotel room 30 miles from his home, updating all of our charts. So for those of you who are subscribers, thank you for staying with us and your patience, but we should start to see all of our Tableau charts being updated over the next couple of days. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and get started with these projections. Now, first of all, can everybody see this okay, or should we dim the lights in the front? Can we dim the lights in the front? Does anybody know which ones those are? Okay, so before we start getting into predictions for going into next year, I love to look at what the predictions were last year and who was right and who was wrong. Right? So when your clients come up and say, hey, I hear this projection, you can say, well, let's talk about last year's projections and see how those went. So Zillow last year, May of 2020, thought that home prices were going to decline, and see how well that went for them. Just their profits. I know. Yeah, their credibility has been a bit damaged here lately. CoreLogic was right along with them, though. CoreLogic came out last year and stated they thought prices from May to May were going to decline 6.6%. And then they adjusted it. So just because somebody says that they think something's going to happen doesn't mean they won't change their mind and say, I never said that. That's why I save headlines, so that we can say, oh, yes, you did say that. And so they downshifted their expectations, saying, well, maybe prices will go up in 2021, but just 0.25%. So gross misfires last year, were they not? We went up we went up 28% November to November. So it's always good to see basically that sometimes these projections, specifically CoreLogic, is notoriously bad. A lot of them are notorious. And I don't mean to pick on CoreLogic so much, but their data is pretty good. We use their data for a lot of things, but their projections are often garbage. And that is why I don't like to be recorded. Okay, you never know what's going to come out of my mouth. But let's talk about what the projections are right now. So Fortune magazine, this actually, this website, which I'm happy to give you guys, I can copy and paste it for you, has one article that does about 7 of these, which is why I like it right now. And on the high side, our Zillow and Goldman Sachs feel that prices are going to go up about 13.5 to 13.6% year over year from October to October. And they are basically stating the basis for their projection is a severe lack of homes that are currently not built, if that makes sense. We have more population than we have homes. That's what they're going for. Fannie and Freddie came out, they're kind of in the middle right now. They believe home price growth is going to be about 7 to 8%. Then you've got Redfin and CoreLogic are coming out at 3% and 1.9. Now, if you're wondering what this chart is here, this is what's already happened. So they're basically saying that this is going to drop off like this. Now, here's the problem with that. CoreLogic right in here, if you can see my dot, that's where they projected prices were going to decline. And this is what prices actually did. And now they're saying, we want you to believe us that it's now going to be 1.9%. The problem with that projection is we are already going up in Greater Phoenix 1.1% a month. So in order to get 3%, we'd literally have to see prices decline year over year. So that's the question we're going to answer today. Does the math support a price decline next year at all, to where we would only see 3% by the end of the year? Does that make sense? So same thing for this forecast. This is just slightly higher than the rate of inflation, which is what we would get if we were in a balanced market. Are we in a balanced market right now? No, not when you have 11 days on the market prior to contract. That's not normal. So then you've got, if that's not bad enough, you've got the Mortgage Bankers Association coming in saying, we believe prices will be down 2.5% by the end of next year. Down. They're stating that it's interest rates for them, even though the industry consensus for, almost every analyst says we still think prices are going to rise, just not very much. But they are stating, no, they're going to decline because we think that interest rates are going to go up to 4% and possibly higher by 2023, affordability, blah, blah, blah. That's where they're coming from. And that's the chart for this. But not even Fannie Mae agrees with the Mortgage Bankers Association and interest rates. So interest rates for them, they think maybe 3.4%, not 4%. And how many people can say that they've seen at least one person who's ever been accurate regarding interest rate predictions? Yeah, that's why we don't predict interest rates. We let other people be wrong about that because they are notoriously bad at predicting where they're going to go and what they're going to do and how they're going to affect our marketplace. And so if somebody is concerned, if you have a buyer that's concerned about what interest rates are going to do next year, you can say, I can only tell you what they are today. Seriously, if they work for you today, then that's what you have. We can't really, most predictions are pretty terrible on interest rates. But then you've got this little housing bubble. You've got Ivy Zimmerman. Ooh, is that me? Is that me? No, should I not be close to something? So you've got Ivy Zellman out there. Who's familiar with Ivy Zellman? Zellman Associates? Maybe just. And or flip investors, essentially buying homes without the intention of living in them or renting it to somebody who's going to live in them. If you don't have the population for the homes that you're building, you're eventually going to get vacant homes, and vacant homes decline in value. Does that make sense? Vacancy is the number one reason why property values decline. It's why rents decline. When does your rent go down? When it's vacant, right? That's what happened to us, and we'll be discussing that. But not all of the economists agree with her in terms of when it's going to hit. So a lot of the economists are like, you're right, population's an issue. We've been talking about it for 6 years, 7 years even. But is it going to hit us next year? Probably not. So this particular economist, Ralph McLaughlin, states, ooh, wow, it's very dramatic. I'm not sure where is the speaker that I should not be close to. Anyway, they're stating that, yeah, this party won't go on forever, but we don't think this is going to happen to us for like 5 or 10 more years, right? And if you're an investor and you're making money now, are you going to stop investing now because you might lose money in 5 or 10 years? Probably not. So that's where she's yelling at people, if you will. She's not really talking to somebody who's going to just buy their home to live in it. She's talking to people who are investing in build to rent apartment complexes, things like that, stating, you're overbuilding right now. We don't have the population growth to justify the level of permits. Does that make sense? That's what she's talking about. And the Brookings Institute has this population growth chart. We had pretty much the lowest or second to lowest measure of population growth in the last decade than we've ever had in the United States. And so 0.35. What that means is we need to have more babies, people. We are not having enough babies. Thanks. Appreciate it. Talk to your grandchildren. I didn't have a child, but my brother had 3, so I'm covered. So, but that's the thing. When we look at our population, we're talking about now a lot of millennials. I just read an article this morning stating millennials are blaming the baby boomers for their inability to buy a home right now. And because the boomers are apparently downsizing and taking all the first-time home buyer homes, and now the millennials are like, stop it, go live in your big house, stay there. So there's been now, just to put it in perspective, millennials are the babies of the baby boomers. Okay, Gen Z are the babies of the Gen Xers. Okay, so it's not about who's going to buy the baby boomers homes when they pass away, which is what they're talking about, the decline in population. When will we have more deaths and births? That's what the question is. It's not who's going to buy these homes. It's who's going to buy the millennials' homes if they don't have more people coming up. Does that make sense? So that's this is what they're looking at. And again, this is not necessarily something that we expect to hit us next year. And this is not something to be afraid of as a realtor, by the way. Realtors will sell homes in any market. So don't be like, oh my gosh, terrible market. What am I going to do? You'll sell a home in any market. Doesn't matter. You don't care if it's down 10%, up to, it doesn't matter for you. This is just about, what's reasonable to expect going forward. Okay. So I know this is a slide that's formatted for Zoom. So we're just going to go over it briefly. But I think what's important going forward when we have all of these projections happening to know what exactly affects our demand. All right. First and foremost, population. So when we talk about demand, it's not just who's writing contracts. Demand is everyone who's here. If your population has grown, every head needs a roof, does it not? That's your real demand. And your true supply is everything that's built. All right. Apartments, townhomes, condos, everything is built. That is your true supply and your demand. Now, all of the other stuff comes into play. Inbound relocation can cause your population to grow. If you're not having enough babies, or if you're not net positive on your birth death ratio, then you can have inbound relocation can pick up the slack. Do we have a lot of that? I think we can all agree we do. Then we have household formation. So household formation is a little more complicated, and this is the one that Ivy Zellman is pointing to. Household formation, when it's growing, you have one household that could be roommates, it could be parents and children, it could be married people, splits into 2 independent households. So that's a growth in household formation. Make sense? When you see a growth in household formation, your demand goes up naturally because one extra head needs like a roof over it. Make sense? So divorce, when it comes to demand, yeah, not for the individuals, but yes. National. Right. Although Ivy Zellman is picking on Arizona, which obviously gets me very sensitive because this is my team. And she's like pointing at Arizona and Phoenix saying, you guys are overbuilding. And I'm like, none of the local analysts here believe you. Exactly. It's almost like you've been hearing me for like the last year. So yeah, we have that chart here for you too. And so Ivy is pointing to household formation. The Mortgage Bankers Association is pointing to affordability and interest rates in particular. So you'll notice that affordability has more than one indicator for what affects it. So you can have interest rates go up and you can have your job growth go up and your incomes go up and offset interest rate increase, right? You can also see interest rates go up and lending practices change. So what happened to lending practices last year when everybody went into forbearance? Anybody self-employed try to get a refinance last year? I mean, it was like a 4-month colonoscopy to try to the bank, and they're like, how are you doing with the COVID and things? I mean, I was one of them. It was like, wow, this is hard. And so, yeah. So it was just, but when they tighten up like that, it doesn't matter what the interest rate is. You could have a 1% interest rate. If nobody can qualify for it, it's not going to do anything for your demand. And conversely, you can have a 6.6% interest rate like 2005, and everybody can qualify for it, and your demand will go up, right? So interest rates by themselves do not dictate what prices will do. I think let's just end it with that. Now, on the supply side, like I said, supply is everything that's built. So the only entity that really creates more supply are construction companies, period. That's the only way you get literally more supply into your pipeline. Now, there's supply you can see and supply you can't see. You've got the supply we see is through the MLS. They're listed, we can count them. The supply you can't see are the homes that haven't been built yet, the homes that are permitted, the for sale by owners that we find out about after they sell, things like that. But just because they're not on the MLS doesn't mean they're not part of supply, right? So that's why when we say things like iBuyers are not on here, iBuyers are not on either one of these. Flip investors are not on either one of these charts because they are not creating supply and they are not really demand. They ride the waves. And when those waves are done, they are done as well. That makes sense? The iBuyers require that somebody needs to live in that home or buy that home. Even if they're selling it to an investment company that's going to rent it out, the investment company needs somebody to rent it out. So they need the demand. And that's what Ivy is saying. You may or may not have the demand later on down the road for all of the buildings, the apartments that you're building. Okay? So that's what we'll be discussing. Also notice here, household formation shrinking. When you have two households independent moving in together, you have supply goes up because you have one vacant home. So when you see household formation growing, your demand goes up. When household formation is shrinking, your supply goes up. And this is going to be important. So just remember that. When you see household formation shrinking, that's one extra vacant home available for somebody. And outbound relocation can create vacant homes as well. So whenever we're looking for what would be the risk factor for us in property values or rental values declining, the number one risk factor is what is going to cause that home to be vacant. Outbound relocation is one of those things. Also, I don't know if you guys saw the article that came out yesterday that Scottsdale is basically turning off the water for Rio Verde. Did you see that? So if you have a client with hauled water in Rio Verde, Scottsdale's not going to provide them hauled water anymore. You got some really expensive homes on hauled water out there. So I just sent that to Mike too. And they're talking about their property values. They're worried that their property values will decline because you're not going to have as many people who want those homes and they could sit vacant for a little while longer than another home if they cannot figure out how to get water to them. Does it make sense? So little things like water or big things like water could cause some outbound relocation. If you can't get water to your house, they'll leave Rio Verde. So, and then finally, you've got the tragedies. And that's where a lot of our investors hang out. But finally, on both of these, you'll see those dang feelings. You can have all kinds of numbers. You can have all kinds of math, logic. And you will get that person that just says, I just feel like property values are going to come down. My PTSD are coming in. You're like, the math doesn't say that, but no, I feel it. I feel it. And what that does is feelings like euphoria or despair, either way, cause people to act outside of what the indicators tell us they should be doing or what everybody else is doing. And so that's kind of what you guys deal with for the most part. So let's talk about that population again. Okay, so we already saw the chart that stated that the population growth over the last decade was the slowest ever. But again, Ivy and all of these other guys are talking about the United States as a whole. It's not even throughout the country. So all of these red states saw a declining population. All of the green states saw a greater than the United States average population growth. And then you've got all of the less than the United States, but positive population growth. So you're looking at definite outbound relocation in some states, right? Which would cause, supply to rise, vacant homes. And you've got population growth in other states. So you can't just paint the entire country with one broad brush. I think we all know that. So that's, and if you want to get this map, you can get it on Ion Housing. And I know some of you have seen this chart of mine before. This is why we don't believe we are over permitting right now for new homes. When we look at the population growth over the last decade, this is the percentage gain in population, the percentage gain in housing units. Where did we get all the vacant homes during the crash of 2008? We had been overbuilding. We were building percentage-wise, growing more in our units than we were in our people. And that's when all of the money, the flip investors were just selling to themselves. There was nobody actually there. Does that make sense? And so when the financing fell through, whoever, it was like musical chairs, whoever was stuck with a home was stuck with their home. because nobody was there to buy it. And that's when the property value started to drop. But that is what caused that. That's where all of that glut of housing came from. The last decade has not been that way because we lost a lot of builders and they couldn't get financing even if they wanted to build for a long, long, long time. And so now here we are kind of catching up, if you will. Here's another way to look at it, if you like. We grew our housing units by 34% during these years and our population by 28%. And we grew our population another 20% and only grew our housing units by 11. Are you stretching or do you have a question? Oh, yeah. Yes. Well, I have this on another side. So this is stating that, and this is for the state, this came out, and that is in another section of projections for population growth. But they are now stating, well, we need another 270,000 additional homes to cover what we've lost and then cover who's still coming here. And so that is a statewide number. I would say just to catch up, we probably need about 90,000 homes just to catch up. And how long does it take to build a home right now? Like 10 to 14 months. I don't believe we fixed this problem last year. Not so sure we're going to be fixing this problem next year, especially since people are still coming. And so here's just one more way to look at this. When you see this, the people, I took a straight up division. How many units do we have versus how many people? Straight up division said we were at 2.4 people per house in 2000, now down to 2.3. When you see this declining, that's not good for property values. But Hy-Vee Zelman is starting to think this is going to happen. But right now, we're still on this uptick. So for me, we can't start predicting that we're heading towards anything until this number either slows down or starts to come down. Does that make sense? Yeah. You know, interestingly enough, I think what we're seeing is, and this is on a sad side of things, but the people who can't keep up are the elderly. They are fixed income, their rents have gone up. If they've never bought a home or they went through their foreclosure and they're still renting because they never caught up, what we're seeing is what Ivy was talking to, multi-generational housing. A lot of that is your 80 or 90-year-old parent moving in with their 60 to 70-year-old child. So that's happening. And I can just tell you within my own family, we're housing some of our family members, you know. Well, I'm with you on that. And right now, I'm just telling my nieces how much money they'll get if they house me. Right. So I'm like, who wants this pot? I've had no children. I'm single aunt who's going to, you know, have me in their house because I'm saving now. So anyhow, I promise not to be too obnoxious. All right. So let's talk about the household formation number one more time. So household formation is not something we typically bring up because it's usually really boring and doesn't move a whole lot. But this is what happened after the pandemic. So remember when I said, when household formation is growing, your demand grows. When household formation is shrinking, your supply grows. So this whole work from home movement is what was boosting a lot of the news media at the time. And it was boosting a lot of our, man, it's like where, you know, two people sharing a closet in San Francisco and now have to work from home are like, I don't have to do this anymore. I can move freely about the country. And that's what happened. But that is still in the news. Do you still see headlines going, oh, the work from home movement's fueling this market? No, it's not. It stopped fueling it after August. It was old news by then, but there's still got legs on that. By February, household formation had started to weaken. And guess what happened in February? Zillow decided this is a good time for us to use our Zestimate as our offer. So Zillow literally amped up their risk factor just as our household formation started to come down, just as the affordability as well started to come down. So that was a very bad decision on their. Hey, let me tell you one more thing about Zillow since we're on the topic. One of the issue that happened with Zillow, if you've got somebody who's looking at that like too big to fail company, totally failed in a massive way, what's, you know, how does that affect me and why should I now get into the market? The thing with Zillow is they decided to go with kind of like a desktop approval, right? At a time when at the market that we are in, this is what we call the dump your junk season. when you have the extreme market that you have, this is the time where you got a home with 7 leaks in the roof. That's just when you list it, right? Because you'll get an offer. You might not get what you want, but you'll get an offer, right? If you've been running a I don't know, a cat rescue in there, this is the time to list that home, right? You'll get somebody to at least look at it, right? But Zillow, an algorithm can't smell a home. It can't see a leak. It can't see a funky floor plan. It can't see power lines in the backyard, the dump next door, or the high school band performing every morning at 5 a.m. It can't see that, right? But that is what the supply was. And that's when they decided, hey, we're just going to let our algorithm run it. It took them 8 months to lose hundreds of millions of dollars off of an algorithm. And I love myself a good algorithm, people. I was like, not a good time to do that. So back to the household formation, it started to weaken from February and then started to decline. So what happened to our supply? That's a national number, but let's look at what happened to our supply. February here, household formation starts to weaken. Our supply stopped dropping. This was where it was growing. Let's see what happened to supply. Supply dropped because demand went up right after the pandemic. Then it stopped dropping here in February, started to rise very slowly. Then when it started to, when household formation did this, started to go up stronger. See that? So when household formation grows, your demand goes up. Oftentimes your supply will drop. When household formation drops, goes negative, 2 people move into one home, leaves a vacant home, your supply will rise. Now, the thing is this high supply? No. So all of these like articles going, oh my gosh, supply is rising. Maybe this is it. You know, I'm coming to see you know, kind of thing. I'm going to have a heart attack. Everything's going to go crashing down. This is not high supply, people. We're just trying to get above 2020 at this point. So let's talk about affordability. Yes, I make my own memes, just so you know. Thanks for laughing. For the longest time when you're on Zoom, by the way, I never know if my jokes are funny, so I really appreciate this. So when it comes to affordability, this is an indicator. We've used it for a long time. It comes from the National Association of Home Builders. The way to read it is this. Of the properties that sold in the third quarter in Phoenix, what percentage of them were affordable to a family making the median income of $79,000 a year? That number was 51% in the third quarter. That's not a good number because it's below our normal range of 60 to 75%. We've been here before, not this bad, but we've been here before in 2018, and interest rates saved our biscuits, if you will. Interest rates came down and our affordability went up. So right after the pandemic, that number was 70%. A family making the median income could afford 70% of what was selling in Greater Phoenix. Great. And you saw what happened with our demand. But now, right after the second quarter, that affordability line started coming down. Again, Zillow decided this is a good time to get risky. It's not a good time. Generally, with affordability, it's not about whether you or your client can afford it. It's about what percentage of the population can buy that home back from you, right? At least the price you paid for it. So that's why it's kind of something that we watch. But here's the problem. I mean, if you're looking at that, that looks pretty dramatic, and it looks a lot like this, doesn't it? Brings back all the PTSD from the bubble. So if you're looking at this, you might think, well, that looks very bubbly to me. Here's the problem with it. And I guess this is where you're just lucky I'm a very nosy person. I'm like, is this number right? 79,000. They get it from HUD. It's only updated once a year. And it's an estimate. So I looked at how HUD is estimating our median income for a family. And you know what they're doing? They're using a 2018 survey from 3 years ago. And they're adjusting it for inflation, the consumer price index, through February. What happened to inflation after February? I know, right? Exactly. Do we even want to talk about it? It went from like 1 to 2% to 3 to 5 to 6%. And none of that is being related in this number if you think the consumer price index is a good way of estimating what we're making now. It also doesn't take into account all the people from California that moved here last year. And it doesn't take into account the fact that I, as a single sole proprietor, self-employed individual, just told the government what I made in 2020 last month. I don't know about you, but thank God for extensions. So, I mean, they didn't even know what I made. I'm pretty sure they didn't know what most of you guys made, and you had like one of the best years ever, right? So, how accurate is that number? I'm not convinced it's an accurate number. I think it's higher. So, that would mean that this is maybe not as bad, but that is what they're using. So, we are on a mission, me and a few other analysts are on a mission to figure out a better angle for finding out what people are making right now. So just in case you're wondering, that's the inflation. This is what it was in 2018 when they did our first analytic, when they did that survey for income. And this is what happened after February. So again, I don't know. I'm not convinced that I think we're bad, but I don't think we're that bad, okay? All right, so let's talk about what prices are doing. Now, again, back to those predictions. If Redfin's going to be right, and we're going to only see 3% from October to October, well, this was October. We've already gone up a couple percent, and we're on this trajectory. So what happens is this is a trajectory we were on, and now our trajectory is just less sharp. Does that make sense? So yeah, we are slowing down. We were going up at about 3 to 5% a month when you guys were at your craziest, cry yourself to sleep as a buyer's agent days. That was 3 to 5% a month. You could go up 15% over market value or over the list price and just say, hold on to it for 3 months, you'll make it back. That was basically how we were. Not this time, not a good idea now. Now you're looking at about, on average, since June, which is right about here, we've been going up at about 1.1% a month, which is still amazing, people. That's 12% a year. That's still amazing. It's just not 3 to 5%. It's not going to be 30% in a year, but we're at 27% on medians. If you like to go by average sale price per square foot, it's 27, 28 as well. So both of those, and you can just see the trajectory is still very high. So the median's not going up, which is like your budget. But when your dollar per square foot keeps going up, that means that what you get for your price is getting smaller. So my budget's going to stay at, say, 425, but now I can only get a 1,600 square foot home or an 1,800 square foot home instead of a 1,900 square foot home. Make sense? So that's why we look at both of them. We're both at about 27. So I was asked to do a long-term chart for somebody just to show, how do I deal with somebody who wants to wait? And what, if they're afraid of a 5 to 10% decline in values, well, my advice is don't sell then. Hold on to your house. Typically, those people who hold on to their homes, history is generally favorable to them. Even if you were in 2006, you bought here and you managed to make your way all the way through this craziness, you actually broke even in July of last year. Congratulations. The long-term hold. If you bought in August of 2011, you've made 239%. Look at all the little ups and downs. You don't care about a 10% decline if you're holding on to it long-term. You don't care about a 10% decline if you bought it last year. It's already gone up 30%. Do you care about 5% down? No. That's why you just say, oh, just hold on to your house. Oh, I got pictures going. Okay. All right. So with that, we're going to get into the 1,500 to 2,000 square foot home. I like to look at these numbers because these are your bread and butter homes. The median sized rental is 1,600 square feet. The median sized home for purchase is about 19 to 2,000 square feet. So that's why I pick on this size range. And that is up 31% with a median now of 420. 420. That should be easy to remember. In case you're wondering what the median, just a little memory tactic right now. With 3.1% listed as the interest rate, this is what's gone on with our payments. So again, the big analyst beef is the sustainability of what we've gone through. And nobody thinks that it's sustainable another year, because when you look at the cost of this 1,500 to 2,000 square foot home, that has gone up literally $100,000 in a year. That's 31%, but your payments went up 40% because of the interest rate fluctuation. And so your interest rates back here were 2.7, now you're at 3.1 and an extra 100,000. So your payment went up $600 to buy the same size home. That's why many people are like, that's not sustainable for anybody. And what's happened is this number, $2,100 a month, is now very similar to rent for the same size home at $2,200 a month. So as that payment gets closer and closer to rent, over the next year, we could start seeing rent be a little more feasible than buying. And that's where a lot of the analysts are saying, we might start to see housing values kind of level off because we have to allow the population time to catch up. Unless, of course, our incomes are wrong and they already have, we don't know. But that's the thing. The rent versus buy, rents have gone up $600 in about 2 years. And just now our payments have gone up. But again, well, I got you depressed. Yeah. The lending practices are not done. So lending practices, loosening up, what can that do? Offsets, right? Lending practices, they announced, Fannie and Freddie announced that they are going to raise their conforming loan limits. The biggest amount I've ever seen in my career, $76,000. That's huge. And remember how I was saying how hard it was to get a loan last year if you were self-employed? So certain people at the dance that were not so pretty last year are looking kind of cute to the lenders. Because if they're not going to get refinances at the higher interest rate, guess what they're going to go for? Purchasing. And they're like, hey, it looks like you got a consistent income since the COVID pandemic. Yeah, good for you. Let's talk. And so look at what happened with the credit availability, right? As forbearance hit and the pandemic hit, credit availability dropped down to 2014 levels. We have a long way we can go just to get back to pre-pandemic levels of lending, loosening up. Okay, so what does that mean for us? It means that even if the interest rates go up, some people who could not qualify before will qualify again, and they will bring our demand up. So that brings us to employment. And I know I've got about 8 minutes here, so I'm going to breeze through this part, but we have a lot of good news. So I really want to make sure. I couldn't decide what to pick out of this section, okay? So unemployment rate, we had the #1 biggest drop in unemployment last month. Thank God. Yay, I've been waiting for this. This has been just a thorn in my side, burning my biscuits for like months now, where I'm like, why are we so flat when we're doing great? And why are we still above the United States, which I don't like either, because I know that we're doing amazing. And the big reason for that is that we keep growing our labor force, whereas the United States as a whole is not growing their labor force. Now, a lot of people think when they see this labor force not back to pre-pandemic level for the United States, that that's a lot of people not going back to work. And they often think it's millennials, that they're doing the van life or something. But that's a lot of people who decided to retire last year. I mean, how many people just said, I'm fed up with this. I'm gonna go retire. I don't have to do this. And now they're coming back going, that was a nice year. I'm bored now. I'd like to go back to work. But the state of Arizona actually recovered their labor force months ago and continue to rise. That's a testament to our population growth as well. So you can't really compare that, can you? Not only that, we've also recovered our jobs, 98% for the entire state. I know that's really small for those of you in the back, but that's 98% for Arizona. And for Phoenix, Mesa, Scottsdale, we're 106% recovered now. And the only areas that we're waiting on are Tucson and Flagstaff to recover their jobs. And then all of our counties will be fully recovered after the pandemic. The country as a whole is at 81%. And then Arizona expected to add more than 720,000 jobs. So where are we going to house these people if we're already below? And for people thinking, do we just have a bunch of people on unemployment? That is not true, not here. As of October 9th, the newly unemployed claims were at 3,800, which is officially below pre-pandemic level. Yeah, so it's not because they're all taking unemployment. And the ones who continually renew their weekly claims are down to 22,800, which is right in here, between 18,000 and 26,000 in March of last year. So we are near, or probably, this is a month old now already, or almost 2 months old. So we're probably already below where we were pre-pandemic. Can't say that word. So the idea that nobody can fill their jobs because everybody's getting unemployment is not necessarily true here. Maybe somewhere else, but not here. And our job growth, we were #2 for job growth. Our incomes are up as well, 4.9%. I think that's W-2 income. I already have a letter in to find out where they get their data, see if I can use it. And this is their projected, which I think is a bit very optimistic myself. The 2.2% annualized growth from 2021 to I think by the end of like 2030 is what they're expecting that. And they're expecting Maricopa and Pinal County to be in the top. Now, there are some economic assumptions here. Okay, that's really important for projections. They are assuming that we will have no major economic or political disruptions. Government agencies will operate within their budgets. The framework, the economic framework will not change. Long-term employment patterns will continue. Arizona's population growth will continue to be in the top 5. That's very optimistic, right? This is the one thing I think is reasonable. Demand for healthcare services will increase as our population ages. That I do believe. But aside from that, that's just, give this a lot of projections a grain of salt. But this is where it really matters. This has already happened. Where are the companies going? What are the growth patterns? So that 202 and I-10 intersection are where a lot of the employment has been continuing to grow. And you'll notice that there's a lot of housing going on all in this area as well. So where do you think the property values might be poised to rise? Just curious where you think poised to rise. Right. Yeah. And you can see South Scottsdale, North Tempe, of course, a lot more in Chandler as well. But really, this is the West Valley. Due West Valley is very, very hot. And this is just one page. I could do an entire show on the headlines. But these are just one page, and they were all together. And look at how many are in the West Valley. Buckeye, one for Casa Grande, Glendale, West Valley, West Valley, West Valley. So what do you think your property values are going to do? Right? So this is where we're going to be putting all of those 720,000 people who are supposed to fit those 720,000 jobs. And you can see a lot of Buckeye, a lot of Peoria, a lot of, what is that? Avondale, I believe, Avondale and Levine, all of this area, all of that purple is approved zone plan and design. That's a 10-year plan. This is your land use map. This is all vacant land. The blue is vacant land. The green is open space. That is existing land use. This is your future land use. Anything that's in yellow is housing. Anything that's red here, that's industrial mixed use, or corporate, I should say. This is the 303 and the 10. All of this purple in here, that's industrial. This is green space, like farmland up in here. And this is all vacant. This is what's planned. So, yeah, you guys have a lot planned out here. It's going to be a little more interesting in the West Valley. And if you're wondering about that build to rent movement, no surprise, it is surprise. Surprise, Buckeye, Levine area, South Phoenix area. So the West Valley is the hot spot for the build to rent movement as well, single family. Well, if I had a single family rental, I might want to make sure it's up to date. Or you're going to have to stay competitive with a brand new single family rental. And that's generally how I feel about it. But as far as my emotional feelings about it, I would prefer that they were for sale myself. But the way they're setting them up, though, is they're multifamily, even though they're single family, because they're all on one plot of land. Yep. And we do need the housing units. But this is what Ivy Zellman is saying. She's like, you're building too many of these. You're going to lose out because a lot of those people are going to, for lack of a better word, die. We are not, replacing ourselves. So don't build too much. And I'm like, well, not today, right? So I know I'm going over a little bit. So I'm going to start going really pretty quickly into our existing numbers. All right. And then we'll get into the summary. So our supply, we've already talked about it. But this is our demand. What is that? So weird. So this is a normal demand pattern. 2020 was abnormal, so we kind of throw it out. But we were starting to go towards what we would consider normal. And then out of the blue, the iBuyers decided they were going to compete with each other. And so we saw this weirdness happening. Then Zillow pulls out and we thought, okay, maybe we'll see it come down a little bit. But no, it's still going up. This is not normal, people. That's not normal. We don't know who they are until they close, unfortunately. I just know something's going on. I just don't know what it is. That's why I require you to talk to me about who they are. But so there's speculation that a lot of it is still corporate hedge fund activity, open door activity. But here is my one prediction that I can say with pretty good confidence, that 2021 is going to overtake 2005 at the end of the year for the number of closings in the MLS. And I will be very happy to not have to say the word 2005 for the rest of my career. Every year after this will be, how does that compare to 2021? Not 2005 ever again. Thank you. And I can say that pretty good because right now in the fourth quarter, 2021 is outperforming 2005. So I feel very confident that that's going to be your headline at the end of the year. So let's talk about where prices are going. I've probably got maybe 5 more minutes. How am I doing on time? Oh, I'm good. Excellent. I got a 10 o'clock next door. All right. So the Comfort Market Index. How many of you are familiar with the Comfort Market Index? I don't want to do my job. So at 100, this is balance. At balance, you can expect your annual appreciation rate to be the rate of inflation, which right now is 6%. Okay. If you go over 110, you can expect your annual appreciation rate to be greater than 6%. And the farther over 110 you go, the higher over 6% it's going to be. Okay. And I stress that the Comfort Market Index is not to be predicted. It predicts everything else. It just tells you what the weather's like today. Okay. So somebody can say we'll have sunny skies a year from now. You're like, that's great, but today it's raining. And I can tell you if it's raining today, what it's going to be like in 3 months. We're going to have mosquitoes. Lots of them. There's one last mosquito that has not died yet from this cold, and it's biting me every day. Anyway, aside from that. But so this just is telling you what the weather's like. And a lot of people are trying to say that this inflation rate is going to affect the price of housing. Now, mind you that the inflation rate has a lot of components. One of the components, the largest component, what do you think the largest component of the inflation rate is? Housing, rentals, not the cost to buy a home, the cost to rent a home. And so when people say, how is the inflation rate going to affect housing? I'm like, no. How is housing affecting the inflation rate? That's the question. So when we talk about inflation, this black line is the Comfort Market Index. The blue bars are your annual appreciation rate. So you can see how your appreciation really follows it. So it's a precursor. We can tell you with pretty good confidence over the next 3 months that if your Comfort Market Index is here, your appreciation rate is going to stay pretty flat. Right there. Not flat like 0%. Flat like we're going to maybe stay at 28%. Does that make sense? Because that's where we are. And when your Comfort Market Index is over 110, you will get better than the rate of inflation. When it's at balance, you will get the rate of inflation 6 months later, because that's how long it takes to sell a house, believe it or not, in balance. For those of you who have never seen balance. And then when you are in a buyer's market, see where inflation wasn't here? When you're in a buyer's market, that's when you will see prices decline. So when people see this inflation rate, they think this, but that's where the Comfort Market Index was then, right? And now they're seeing it again, but the Comfort Market Index is up there. Does that make sense? So you've got people that are having a little bit of PTSD over the inflation rate, because the last time inflation got that high, we saw a massive decline in prices. But our math does not tell us that that's going to happen this time. And you have to go with math. Okay. All right. So this is where we're at 361. We're not going to see prices decline. And look at this. Supply is actually dropping again, and our demand picked up. Like, no, you have to see them go towards each other, not away from each other, before we can see prices even shift a little bit. This is what the Comfort Market Index looks like right now. It's just hanging out here in a very, very, very strong seller market. So as long as it's here, you're going to see prices rise. This is what happened. This is when you called me, Nate. We're here. You're like, what's happening, Tina? So right here is the pandemic. And then boom, you could argue that this was just pinching the hose, and then we got back to where we would have been anyway had we never had a shutdown. But that's a really hard indicator to talk about because it's complicated. So this is what we recommend you use, the contract ratio. It takes what's active and what's under contract, divides what's active into what's under contract. Whenever you have anything over 100, you are in frenzy. If you're over 200, you're insane. So we've gone from insane to a mere frenzy. That's what, and this is where we are normally, okay? So just to give you an idea, if somebody's like, oh, this is too bad, I don't get an appraisal waiver. Is this a buyer's market? No. That's where is this the beginning of the end? I have to do repairs? This is what's happened over the last few months. So from April to August, when you have your indicators going opposite directions, we had under contract went down, so your demand went down, your supply went up, and they go in different directions. You can see the changing in the chart is more extreme, and you can feel that extra loosening up in the marketplace. For your buyer, you get 5 properties to choose from instead of 1 that you have to throw all your ammunition at. But since August, it's been relatively flat, going up just a little bit. So since August, your demand has now gone up and your supply has gone down. So you can see it start to rise just a little bit there. So, but we're, for the most part, still hanging out, pretty stable, no big changes, nothing to tell us that we're going to see prices decline. And when you put it in perspective, historically, if somebody's like 6,100, that's ridiculous. It was only 3,000 last year when we were all, crying ourselves to sleep. But when you put it in perspective, even in a strong seller market of 2019, we had 12,600. So we are less than half of supply from just 2 years ago. And if you want to give them the last balance market, 2014, we had 23,000 listings. What's normal is to have more in the MLS than what's under contract. That's normal. Okay, see that? The bottom number is bigger than the top number. That's normal. This is not normal. So until this 11,000 is below the 6,000 or one of those, until supply is below what's under contract, you're not going to see much with prices, okay? That has to happen first. So the math is not in favor. So let's talk about this. If this is the only chart you use, you're good. Seriously. If you're trying to combat any kind of prediction, because it shows the red line is our supply index, so the Cromford report. The green line is your demand index. Prices only decline in a buyer's market. Period. End of discussion. Okay. And you can see the farther apart the indicators are, the more the prices will respond dramatically to bring the two lovers together. Right? Supply and demand are two lovers who just want to be together. When they're together, everything is wonderful and stable and boring, and we go to the rate of inflation, and it takes 6 months to sell a house, and we have to do flyers and tours and all of that. That's what that looks like. But when we are not in that position, see, when demand and supply are far apart, prices rise sharply. When they start to come together, you start to see the prices curve in. Then we were 6 months into a buyer's market. This is when Ivy Zelman said we're heading for a crash, and we said, you're right. We are. We had 56,000 listings in the MLS and 4,000 in escrow waiting to close. That's what that looked like. And we're like, yeah, it makes sense to me. Looks like a price crash to me. Are you stretching? Okay, just making sure. And no, it always, balance is always with your supply and demand. So let's put it in this perspective. If you have 10% lower than normal demand, but your supply is also 10% below normal, then you're in balance. You can have 20% higher than normal demand, but your supply is 20% higher than normal as well, or 10% or whatever, and you're in balance. Does that make sense? When they come together above 100, you have lots and lots of transactions. When they come together below 100, you have fewer transactions. So from an industry standpoint, you'll have more realtors competing for fewer deals in this scenario when both of these go below 100. That's not the case today because demand is still way above 100. So you have a lot of transactions going. But the thing is, what I'm trying to get across here is, see here, when we went into a little mini seller market, that was the first time home buyer credit, by the way, went into a little mini seller market, prices rose, little buyer market, prices declined. We had to get through some emotions in here. And then it started to rise. We hit balance. We went to the rate of inflation. Then seller market again, nice and easy. And then here we are again, extreme. So until these two come together, we cannot predict the prices are even going to slow down that much. Does that make sense? So right here, the math supported Ivy Zelman in 2006. The math does not support Ivy Zelman in 2021. That's the case. And at this point, we do need more houses. So finally, I think we're good. In terms of appreciation, this is what it looks like when a market weakens but is not weak. And that's the thing. We're weakening, which is making some people think, oh my God, I'm only going to get 28%. This is ridiculous. We came down from 39%. Now we're at 28. Our days on market went from 5 to 11. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to do a seller meeting after a week. This is what? An update? You're going to need an extra 72 hours. That's why I'm not recorded. And then we've got closings per month that were over asking price, 60% in June, down to a mere 45 to 46%. That's still very high. In June, you were under pressure to put $20,000 over asking price. Now only $10,000. It sounds like a bargain. Now only 10,000, and it's kind of been hanging out there so far at 10,000. But in a normal market or normal seller market, 2,500 used to be enough. So it's still very high. And then you've got your list price to sale price ratio is now at exactly 100%. This will be updated today or tomorrow. Exactly 100. So you're still getting a lot of full price offers, just not as many as you were in June over and above asking price. So again, this is an indicator that will still rise because we're still pushing the market on our list prices, right? Just you're getting your list price, but not as much over it. So here's your summary. Market conditions right now. Now, this is where you get that one person, though, that says, but foreclosures. You have 11 days on the market. You think it's going to last 90 days? Seriously, 90-day pre-foreclosure period. Here's the big stat. Notice I took that out for time. But if somebody brings this up, you have to let them know we literally do not have enough mortgages in forbearance in the nation to have anywhere close to what we had in 2008 to 2012. There aren't enough of them. We've already had over 3.7 million mortgages come off of forbearance in the last year, and none of them affected our market. In fact, our prices went up. So if 3.7 or 3 point whatever it is now, over 3 million mortgages isn't going to affect us. What do they think the extra million is going to do? Nothing. So we don't have enough in forbearance to accomplish any kind of foreclosure crisis. Zillow pulling out, not a reflection of our bad market, only bad decisions. There are no bad areas, only bad decisions, people. And then 2021 is on track to overtake 2005. Yes, let's hope. All right, with that, hopefully I answered most of your questions today. And if you need me, I will be giving this again next door. Yeah, well, thank you guys. Thanks for bringing me on, and to remind you that it's just Mike and I. If you do want to sign up for today and you get all those charts for your areas and your price points, all of our charts can be manipulated for your different area and your different clients. So do go over to cropperreport.com, click on sign up. We are only allowed to sell subscriptions to you, real estate agent members of the MLS. So it is proprietary. Your investors can't get it. So, all right, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Nate.
So if you didn't get enough, you can go next door and pay to see you, right? On Zoom. All right, guys. Any thoughts? Yeah, wow, huh? So in a market like this, are interest rates going up or down? Yeah. I'm refinancing right now with Brian. Shameless plug. I'm under 2%. I wasn't going to refinance our house because it was 3.5. You know? Now we're going to close thing next week at 1.85. 15-year mortgage, cut another 10 years off. So, you know, it's never too late to refinance. You know, think about those type of things. It's not too late to invest in real estate. How many people have bought an investment home this year? Last year? Huh? Shannon's buying one in Mississippi. Yeah. I don't know if that's public knowledge, but it is now. Yeah. Yeah. She's a realtor. uh, so, you know, usually I do my predictions, but I pulled out doing the predictions this year because we had Tina with us, and I think it's really interesting to see our market. Our market's going to continue to grow. The opportunities are going to be there, right? And you know, inventory. You know, who took a listing this month? In the last 2 days, yeah, good, good. So I mean, our market's good. Any questions? No, no. I think we've been saying that for like 10 years, right? Yep. Yeah, yeah. Interesting, and you know, and I think she said something today I thought was really cool. This is the year to dump your junk, right? That was pretty cool, and we saw that happen. You know, we saw people paying more than a house is worth for something that was in poor condition. You know, so kind of feel bad for some of those buyers, not the investors, but I do feel sorry for a lot of those buyers. 2 days ago, company in Phoenix, at least it was in the Phoenix Business Journal, came out, and I just can't figure this out. Like, Jimmy, why did you and I do this, right? You know, they raised $39 million to be a eye flipper, right? I mean, it's like one Zillow goes out, another one comes in. So I think our flippers are going to be in there. One thing she didn't say, that at least that I'm aware of, I think we're at 10.8% of our market is iBuyer buys and sells, you know. Shannon? Mhm. No, only if it's through MLS on her data. Now, most of those iBuyers are on MLS, right? That 10% is, you know, that shows in MLS. Yeah, they buy it and sell it, right? You know, unless the ones that are going to the investors that are going to hold. Mhm. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, the data's out there, you know. I really, you get some slides, Mike? This is reverse. We usually do a bunch of slides in the first and the speaker.
Is this thing on? All right. So yeah, I mean, fantastic information there. Again, like that's what's interesting is because again, we've all got access to MLS data and some of those other things, and we can make guesses and we can, you know, look at all the news articles, but like doing that analysis and, you know, comparing it to year over year and all that. Now, how many of you were here last December when we also had Tina in again with Nate and looked at all this information? All right. Yeah. So interesting. Of course, we were all a little more concerned about it then, I think, right? Because things were that much more crazy, pandemic, all those kind of things. And, you know, when you saw the 2020 numbers on her slides, right? But again, you know, I just want to point out that both what Nate was saying then and, you know, what she was looking at with the data supported what we ultimately did see this year, which was, yeah, things cooled down, but they cooled down from insanity into frenzy. Right. And if you remember last year, she was, you know, showing some of the graphs and she's like, had to add all these extra colors for like the additional activity that we didn't have before, all that. So, you know, I think that's all good news. You all saw that. I'm not going to go deeper on that, but I just wanted to point that out too, that, you know, the data doesn't lie. And yeah, we might have some other insane curveball, but even when we have a curveball like global pandemic, we keep watching the data, we keep working off of that kind of stuff. And then what we all see out there in the market, and we get things done. And you guys remain, you know, higher performance than the rest of the market. So kudos to you is where I was getting with that. Couple just real quick things. One, I've got 2 B's and 5 M's for you. That's breakfast and beverages provided by Motto Mortgage and Muscular Moving Men. Thank you. We appreciate you guys. And then just a couple quick things we wanted to mention here before we head out today. So R4 coming up, you guys all know that. So it's February 28th to March 2nd. Back in Vegas this year, obviously always a great time. You know, Nate can tell you more about that. Of course, you've heard it many times, but wanted to mention that we've got early bird pricing and also a special for premier brokers such as ourselves. So it's an extra $100 off that registration. So if you're thinking about going, good time to register and take advantage of that. Also, if you don't want to pay that, don't forget, we're doing our passport to R4 here. If you just do some of these strategies that we've got on here, things you should be doing already, but maybe some of these are things you haven't looked at recently or kind of forgot existed. That's really what we're doing here. We're trying to help you, look at some of these things during Q4, set up for a great Q1, and we're going to gamify it and reward you for doing it. Nate?
Well, next Wednesday, Sarah and I are doing a business planning. That would probably work. Sarah's doing a vision planning this month as well. Yeah.
If you didn't hear that online, the important part there was for the vision planning, breakfast, and mimosas. But you need to RSVP.
You know, we created this little passport, to kind of create a jump into next year, right? If we go through and do these 12 items, your business can only do one thing, and that's go up, right? A lot of this stuff is easy. The other day, I don't know about you guys ever wake up in the middle of the night? Anybody do that? Is it just me? So I woke up at 3:15 2 days ago, and I'm like, we have a new listing, and it's 3:15, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna go on a Remax Hustle and make a video. You know what I mean? And so, I want to make sure I get my opportunity to get a free trip to R4, right? But that house will sell. That house will sell either today, tomorrow, Friday, or Saturday, right? It's a great house. But we got, it's on Range Mule. Steve, open on Saturday. Brandy and Jennifer are holding it up on Sunday, and we got showings, so it's a great house. But anyway, not a plug for that listing. We need to think about things, right? So if we only have one listing, we need to go all in. We know it's going to sell, but why not do the free marketing, right? So every house I list or our team list, we usually go on the market on Monday and we put it active, but we don't allow showings. And I know this upsets a lot of you. And if you're strong enough, you'll still get in, right? Then we'll go ahead and the seller will let you in. But what we're trying to do with that is we're trying to get the free marketing that Remax pays for, and the house gets more and more activity once it's on MLS, right? Like I was going to show a house today that sold in one day, and they said, we're done. We're after 5 o'clock, we're not taking any more offers. I'm thinking, is that really in the best interest of that seller? I think what's in the best interest of the seller is to make sure the house is exposed to the market long enough. We've had several houses that we've done this process that have sold, for 10, 20, up to $100,000 above list price, because we restrict the time we're going to accept an offer from the time we put it on the market, so that the marketing starts to work for our sellers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Shh, shh, don't tell nobody. Yeah, in this market, it's real easy to say, hey, we don't need to do nothing. I don't need the flyers. I don't need to do professional photos. We just don't stop. Every house that we list, professional video, professional photos, Matterport, everything, right? Because I want the consumer to see what I'm doing, so that when they're ready in a month or 2 months or 3 months, I'm not worried about saving that money. That's an investment, if you take your own pictures with your iPhone, I have one tip: put the toilet seat down. Right. Get out of the car.
Yeah, get out of the car. Yeah.
Slow down.
But that's 100%. And on top of just missing out some of the marketing opportunity, I think there's two things. One, there's the buy sides again that you're missing by not doing that. Two, you can differentiate yourself from other people in this market who think it doesn't matter who they go with because it's going to sell right away, right? Well, again, like Nate just said there, you're continuing to do all that kind of stuff, and you can show them that, and then you have that record to show this additional pre-exposure is going to get you that higher price. I mean, again, that all makes sense. But the other thing I think about, especially chatting with a lot of our folks, is that you don't want to develop bad habits, right? You don't want to get out of the habit of doing all of these good things because, when a change comes, you want to still stay above the crowd, right? So. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So before we get off on any more tangents, but R4, right? It'll be my 31st year in a row that I've been to R4. I guarantee you going to these events will make you money. You'll have fun, right? You'll learn something. And again, it'll make you money. At least once a week, guys, we're blessed with a referral from a RE/MAX agent somewhere in the United States. They don't always go through, right? But they just call us direct, and that's just my team. That's not our company I'm talking about, right? So it's that investment over time. It's that compounding effect. I will never miss a R4 convention, right? So even when Mila was how old? A couple days old, boom, she allowed me to go. Go. I wasn't gonna go. You encouraged me to go. Yeah. It paid for her college education, right?
There you go. It was an investment.
Cindy, I can't hear you. Oh my God. It's been in your email a couple times.
We will send it out again today, right after this meeting. Kim's nodding at me. Okay, well, it'll go out again, and we'll make sure we repost it to Inner Circle on Facebook as well, so you can find it those two places. And we have both just, the little fun checkbox kind of thing here, but we also have a document that goes with it that says, here's where you can find some of this stuff. This is where, if you're not sure what one of these things is, just log in here on RU, that kind of stuff. So again, if it is something you're like, I don't even know what that is, look at the link, follow it, check it out. And of course, any of us are happy to help you out with that. Again, most of the stuff is super, super easy as well. And that's the thing, is once you actually try it and see, it's going to blow your mind if you haven't touched some of the stuff, and it's going to make a big difference. So go do it.
It does say here, make sure you attend January's monthly meeting to see who wins. I'm not sure we're going to have Zoom next month. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see how the world goes there. But yeah, we may do a must be present to win. We'll see. Two more quick things here. Holiday party. So who is already planning on going to this crazy fun here on the 10th? Yes. All right. Nate.
Logistics, parking we haven't quite figured out. So just like if you were going to Westgate, you might have to walk a little bit to get to the house, right? I think we got everything else figured out. We've been thinking about pedicabs or golf carts. Yeah, we're looking for them. They're not easy to get a 6-passenger golf cart. And the golf carts at Blackstone only allow a driver and one person. So that doesn't work, right? Because that's. No, 30396 North 117th Drive. And if you just go to Monsoon and type in Nate Martinez, you might find it.
And that is on all the invites that went out, just not this particular slide graphic. But yeah, you're good. So yeah, be there. It's going to be a good time. And yeah.
It's going to be indoor, outdoor. So dress accordingly. We got a bunch of heaters and so forth, but
I'm going to wear an awesome Christmas sweater. I encourage you all to do the same. Check those out. Another fantastic.
Awesome, not ugly.
Well, it's a matter of opinion, isn't it?
Hey guys, I got a call about, 6 weeks ago from a past client of mine, Walt Hallestad or Calistad. He was the pastor for one of the largest churches in town, and before he kind of retired, and he reached out to me and he said, "Hey, Nate," he goes, "I need you. We got a problem. We have a Christmas parade, not a holiday parade. We have a Christmas parade in Glendale that is struggling." Okay. And he goes, "I need your involvement." And I'm like, "All right." So he lost, because of COVID, they lost a couple big sponsors. They used to always have two Glendale automotive sponsors. One of them stayed in, one of them got out. So we kind of replaced them. And so I had to write a sizable check, more than I thought I was going to write. And we have this parade, and we have now have the last float in the parade, and we got Santa Claus, and we got a few of you that have jumped in to be on a committee, and Danielle's really jumped in and put her vehicle. So this, if you go, or if your clients go, this is what they'll see at the end of the parade, right? We got Danielle's truck with the Remax balloon in it. We purchased a snow machine. We purchased a bubble machine, and we have a tractor. We have a trailer, and we're going to be pulling Santa Claus in it, right? And so if any of you want to get involved in this, get involved, right? See Kim. We're going to be decorating the float on what day, Kim? Thursday. Now this is fun, right? This is Thursday night party at our house at Friday night, and 6 a.m. The parade people got to be at the parade at 6 a.m. After the party. Yeah. It's not 6 a.m. We don't have to do that. Oh, okay, good. Somebody told me I had to be there at 6 a.m.
Maybe they're hedging bets based on the party.
Okay. Kim, well, just get with Kim. If you want to get involved, just get with Kim. She has all the details.
Yeah, but there's so much work that's been put into this, and again, so many people think. But as Nate mentioned, there, it's really cool what they've got set up. It's going to be a Remax branded mobile winter wonderland. It's going to be a whole lot of fun, and again, what a great event too. I mean, the parade is just fun in and of itself, and if you get clients, whomever out there, they're going to see our presence. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll send this out again.
Sarah, you
too.
sent it out to us yesterday in the newsletter. That was a full page in the newsletter. Huh?
Yeah, if we want to tweak it,
Well,
though, we can do that, obviously. Yeah.
So we'll get Orlando to change it up for the clients. And if we send it out, you guys can send it to your clients, invite them. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and just do a basic version of this. Doesn't even have the verbiage, so it's just like the date and the parade logo, and then you can say whatever you'd like. Makes it easy. All right, we got that. Cool.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's gonna be a good time. Be there. Be at the party.
I mean,
It's gonna be
what a
fun
great way
weekend.
just to touch with your clients, right? Hey, come out to a parade. How many been to a parade in the last year? 1, 2, right?
All right.
2, right? Cool.
And with that, make it a merry month, guys. Thanks for coming out.
All right. Merry Christmas.